Contents of the table setup kit and leveling valve kit. 12 safe lock clips, 2 spanner wrenches, 12 safe lock clip bolts, 3/8" ratcheting wrench, 7/16" ratcheting wrench, 1/4" tubing threaded adapter, 3 1/4" T-fittings, hose routing clips, 3 leveling valves, 1 knife, 40 feet 1/4" translucent tubing, 1 combination tape measure, laser level, leveling wrenches. Removing the table safely from the crate and safely lifting the table off of the pallet. Use a forklift to lift the table approximately 6 inches to 1 foot off the floor. Step on a corner of the pallet to create a space between the bottom of the table and the pallet. Insert a 4" by 4" piece of wood into this space. Repeat this procedure for the other end of the table. Lower the pallet onto the floor. Back the forklift out from under the pallet. Position the forklift forks into the space created between the pallet and the bottom of the table. Make sure to center the forklift forks under the table. Assembling the OTS frame. Unpack the OTS leg assemblies and the cross braces. The SmartTable OTS leg assemblies are shipped bolted together via 2 shipping brackets. These brackets keep the OTS leg assemblies upright during shipping so the damping oil does not leak out. Do not lay the leg assemblies on their side. Damping oil will leak out of the assembly. Remove the 2 shipping brackets using the 7/16" ratcheting wrench. Each bracket has 4 bolts that must be removed. Roughly position the OTS leg assemblies. The distance between the assemblies should be about the length of the cross braces. 2 people will be required to safely assemble the OTS frame. Bolt the cross braces to the OTS frame assembly using the 7/16" bolts, washers, and lock washers provided with the OTS frame. Use the 7/16" ratcheting wrench to tighten the bolts. If your frame is the non-isolated or rigid version, you do not have leveling valves. Please skip this section of the video. The 3 leveling valves are mounted to the cross braces via 2 hex bolts. Note that only 3 leveling valves are needed since 3 points define a plane. 3 sets of holes have been pre-drilled and tapped in the frame cross braces. Attach the leveling valves to the frame and use the appropriate Allen wrenches to tighten the hex bolts. Attach the ARF air regulator to the OTS leg assembly. Use the appropriate Allen wrench to tighten the 2 bolts. Attach gray tubing to the barbed fitting on the metering needle valve. Connect the other end of this tubing to the 1/4" elbow fitting located on the isolator body. Repeat this process for the closest adjacent isolator with a leveling valve. These 2 isolators are referred to as master isolators. The valves on these isolators will allow independent adjustment of air pressure in each of these isolators. The last 2 isolators will share a valve. This is referred to as a master-slave relationship. The leveling valve will be used to adjust the air pressure in both of these isolators. The air pressure will be the same in both of these isolators. Cut the last piece of 1/4" gray tubing in half with the knife. Attach 1 piece of this tubing to the barbed fitting on the metering needle valve. Attach a 1/4" T-fitting to the other end of this tubing. Next, connect the second piece of gray tubing to one of the remaining ports in the T-connector. Connect the free end of the gray tubing to the 1/4" elbow adapter located on the isolator body. There should be 1 free port remaining on the T-fitting. Cut approximately a 4-foot length of 1/4" translucent tubing. Connect one end of this tubing to the remaining port in the T-connector. Connect the other end of the translucent tubing to the 1/4" elbow adapter on the adjacent isolator. The isolators are now connected to the valves. Connecting the air supply. Cut 1 piece of 1/4" translucent tubing about 6 inches in length. Connect this piece of the tubing to the ARF. Connect a T-fitting to the other end of this piece of tubing. There should be 2 free ports on the T-fitting. Cut a piece of 1/4" translucent tubing about 1 foot in length. Connect this piece of tubing to one of the free ports on the T-fitting installed in the previous step. Connect a T-fitting to the end of the 1-foot piece of tubing just installed. This T-fitting now has 2 open ports. Cut one piece of 1/4 inch translucent tubing about 1 foot in length. Connect one end of this tubing to an open port of the T-fitting just installed. Connect the other end of the tubing to the input port on the leveling valve. Cut one piece of 1/4 inch translucent tubing about 3 to 4 feet in length. Connect one end of this piece of tubing to the first T-fitting installed. Connect the other end of the tubing to the input port of adjacent isolator's leveling valve. Cut one piece of 1/4 inch translucent tubing about 6 to 10 feet in length depending on the size of your table. Connect one end of this tubing to the remaining port on the second T-fitting you installed. Connect the other end of the tubing to the input port of the remaining leveling valve. Use the remaining 1/4 inch translucent tubing to connect the ARF to the air supply. Installing the table. The bottom of the table contains bolt hole patterns for mounting the isolators to the table via the safe lock clips. Position the table so the bolt hole patterns line up over each isolator. Slowly lower the table to within 1/2 inch of the isolators. Slight adjustment of isolator positioning may be necessary in order to achieve proper alignment for the isolator and bolt hole pattern on the bottom of the table. Move the OTS frame if necessary. Once satisfied with the alignment, lower the table onto the isolators and remove the forklift or pallet jack. Place the level on the tabletop. The level measures if the table is level in the XY plane. There are 2 bubble indicators on this device. One can be viewed from the side, while the other can be viewed from the top. Use the 2 spanner wrenches to level the table. One wrench is used to hold the lock nut, while the other is used to rotate the bolt. This will either raise or lower the table depending on the direction the nut is rotated. Adjust the leveling as needed to achieve a level surface. Once level, make sure all 4 isolators are in contact with the bottom of the table. Use the safe lock clips and bolts to attach the isolators to the table. Each isolator requires 3 clips to be installed. Tighten the bolts with the 3/8 inch ratcheting wrench provided in the installation kit. Set the air supply pressure to about 30 psi and let the isolators inflate. This may take up to 5 minutes. You should be able to see the table rise when enough air is in the isolators. Rotate the height adjustment valve to raise and lower the isolator. Gently push down on the tabletop. The table should lower and then return to its starting position. Gently push up from the bottom of the table. The table should slightly rise, then return to its original position. If the table does not move freely either up or down, adjust the height adjustment screw in the leveling valve until the table moves freely. Repeat this process for all 3 isolators. If the table rocks back and forth without settling down, close all of the needle valve adjustment screws. Then reopen the screw by 1/8 to 1/4 turn. Final test. Slightly push down on the tabletop. It should move down easily. Slightly lift up on the tabletop. It should move up easily. Push sideways on the side of the table. It should easily move from side to side. Congratulations! You've successfully floated and installed your new vibration isolation system.